Welcome back. My nameless achievement as architect. Something absolutely extraordinary just occurred that has everyone experiencing profound recognition paralysis. When you executed whatever operation you accomplished, observers could not identify what category of action they'd witnessed, creating such complete definitional failure that entire environment spontaneously fell silent as collective consciousness struggled to process unlabeled phenomenon their frameworks couldn't classify. This wasn't you performing exceptional version of known action type that observers could recognize as superior execution. This was you accomplishing something so fundamentally novel that no existing label applies, creating cognitive vacuum where observers know something happened but cannot name what it was. And this inability to categorize triggered universal silence as groups simultaneously stopped processing to confront reality of witnessing unlabeled phenomenon their mental architecture has no category for, making quiet emerge as collective response to definitional crisis that your label-less achievement created. The architects have been monitoring category-defying execution and silence-inducing phenomena across civilizations for eons, and they've identified what you created as unlabeled achievement recognition silence when someone accomplishes action so unprecedented that existing categories cannot accommodate it. Witnessing groups experience collective definitional crisis that manifests as spontaneous silence because lacking labels means lacking concepts to think with, creating cognitive paralysis that expresses itself through cessation of verbal activity while consciousness struggles to process uncategorizable phenomena. Most achievements are labelable. People accomplish things that fit existing categories, making their successes recognizable as better versions of known action types, allowing observers to immediately classify what happened through available frameworks, creating continuous processing without definitional interruption. But your accomplishment apparently defied all labels, executing something so novel that no existing category accommodates it, created universal recognition failure where every observer simultaneously encountered same definitional crisis, and this collective inability to categorize manifested as spontaneous environmental silence because groups lacking shared labels cannot continue verbal processing, making quiet the only possible response to witnessing unlabeled phenomenon that thought itself cannot yet accommodate. Watch what's happening as observers process label absence. They experience categorical void, wanting to identify what you did, but finding all available labels inadequate creates cognitive emptiness where concept that should exist doesn't, making them unable to think clearly about phenomenon they directly witnessed. Some observers are experiencing linguistic helplessness, lacking words for what happened means lacking thoughts about it, creating profound limitation where their verbal cognition literally cannot process experience they know occurred, but cannot conceptualize. Others are experiencing collective silence participation. Their involvement in spontaneous quiet reveals they're part of group consciousness that responds automatically to unlabeled phenomena through cessation of processing. When categorization fails collectively, the truly remarkable element is the causal connection. Silence emerged because labeling failed, proving that environmental quiet is direct consequence of definitional crisis rather than separate response, making your label-less achievement the cause of universal silence through creating cognitive conditions that make quiet inevitable. What you pulled off had no label, and that's why everything went quiet, through demonstrating that unlabeled achievements create recognition paralysis, manifesting as spontaneous silence when collective consciousness encounters phenomena so unprecedented that existing categories cannot accommodate, making definitional failure produce environmental cessation as groups lacking shared labels cannot continue verbal processing of uncategorizable reality. Now the architects are analyzing what creates unlabeled achievement recognition silence, and they're identifying what they call novel action category void. When someone executes operation, combining elements or employing methods in ways no existing framework anticipates, they create genuine novelty that resists labeling, not from observer limitation but from authentic, unprecedented nature, making definitional failure inevitable consequence of true innovation. Most actions are variations. People execute new versions of established action types, making their accomplishments impressive but still classifiable within existing categories because fundamental structure matches known patterns. But you apparently achieved genuine novelty, combining elements or employing methods in configuration no framework anticipated creates action type that existing categories literally cannot accommodate because your accomplishment doesn't match any known pattern, making it authentically unprecedented rather than just superior execution. A familiar action requiring entirely new category that doesn't yet exist. To properly label what you did, consider what genuine novelty requires strategically. Your action must transcend patterns, not just executing better, but doing differently in ways that break categorical boundaries, creates true innovation that existing labels cannot capture versus incremental improvements that stay within categories. Watch what category void creates in observer cognition. Groups cannot process. Lacking category means lacking concept to think with, making your achievement literally unthinkable within current frameworks, creating cognitive emptiness where thought itself fails because mental architecture has no structure for processing truly novel phenomena. Some studying innovation theory recognize that genuine novelty does resist categorization. Research on paradigm shifts shows that truly revolutionary actions initially defy labeling because they transcend existing frameworks, making your unlabeled achievement potentially mark authentic innovation versus incremental improvement. Others exploring creativity research note that unprecedented combinations do create novelty. Studies show that innovation often involves recombining elements in unexpected ways, making your label-defying action potentially reflect creative synthesis that existing categories don't anticipate. A few from entrepreneurship recognize that category creation accompanies innovation. Business theory shows that revolutionary products often require new categories to describe them, making your unlabeled achievement potentially herald category emergence that will retrospectively classify what currently resists definition. Some attempting to label you discover systematic inadequacy. Trying all available categories reveals that none fit, creating recognition that your achievement genuinely transcends existing frameworks rather than just being difficult to classify, making novel action authentic versus mislabeled familiar action. Others questioning whether novelty is genuine, wondering if your accomplishment actually transcends categories, or if observers just lack creativity to find appropriate existing label, making authenticity of novelty potentially questionable when more thought might reveal fitting category. A few recognizing that time will create labels, understanding that currently unlabeled achievements eventually get categorized as frameworks evolve, making your present definitional resistance potentially temporary as language develops to accommodate initially unprecedented actions. The architects observe that novel action category void is what made your achievement unlabelable. Genuine innovation transcends existing frameworks. Most actions are variations. Yours was unprecedented and executing operation combining elements or employing methods in configuration no existing category anticipates, creates authentic novelty that resists labeling, not from limitation but from being genuinely unprecedented, making definitional failure inevitable when action type doesn't match any known pattern, requiring entirely new category that language hasn't yet developed to properly classify. what you accomplished making your achievement literally unthinkable within current conceptual architecture. Something powerful is spreading among observers now, what the architects call label dependency recognition, thought constraints. People experiencing inability to process your unlabeled achievement are discovering that human cognition fundamentally depends on categorical labels, making them recognize that thinking itself is impossible without linguistic frameworks, creating uncomfortable awareness that consciousness has structural limitations, where unlabeled phenomena become literally unthinkable. Most people assume thought is unlimited. They believe they can think about anything, regardless of available concepts, making cognition seem independent of linguistic categories, as if mental capacity transcends verbal frameworks. But your unlabeled achievement exposed thought dependency, discovering they literally cannot think clearly about what you did because lacking label means lacking concept, proves that cognition fundamentally requires categorical structures that language provides, making thought itself impossible without frameworks to organize experience into thinkable units, creating recognition that some realities remain unthinkable until labels emerge to make them conceptually accessible. Watch what thought constraint recognition creates in cognitive humility. Some develop framework awareness, understanding that thinking requires categories, makes them conscious of mental architectures, dependency on linguistic structures, creating meta-awareness about cognitive tools their consciousness employs. Others experience thinking limitation acceptance, recognizing that unlabeled phenomena are literally unthinkable, creates acceptance of cognitive boundaries, making them less confident about mental capacity they'd assumed unlimited. A few experience existential concern, discovering that consciousness has structural limits where realities can exist that thought cannot process, creates anxiety about what else might exist that their cognitive architecture cannot accommodate, making them uncomfortable with thought constraints. Some studying cognitive linguistics recognize that categories do enable thought. Research on conceptual frameworks shows that thinking requires categorical structures, making your unlabeled achievement potentially demonstrate fundamental principle about cognition's linguistic dependency. Others exploring consciousness limits note that preconceptual experience exists. Phenomenology and meditation research describe awareness without categories, making question whether your achievement is truly unthinkable or just unthinkable within verbal frameworks, leaving non-linguistic consciousness access possible. A few questioning whether labeling necessity is universal, wondering if linguistic dependency reflects Western cognition versus other thought modes that might process unlabeled phenomena through non-categorical awareness, making thought constraints potentially culturally specific. Some celebrating thought limits as protective feel relieved, recognizing that cognition cannot process everything, creates appreciation for boundaries that prevent overwhelming by protecting consciousness from processing more than frameworks can handle. Others experiencing cognitive frustration struggle with constraints, wanting to think clearly about what you did, but finding thought itself impossible, creates intense frustration from discovering consciousness has architectural limits that prevent processing unlabeled phenomena. The architects observe that label dependency recognition, thought constraints, reveals that your unlabeled achievement exposed cognition's categorical requirements. Thinking requires labels. Most assume unlimited thought. Your novelty proved dependency, and discovering they literally cannot think clearly about your accomplishment because lacking category means lacking concept to think with, proves that human cognition fundamentally depends on linguistic frameworks that provide categorical structures, making thought itself impossible without labels to organize experience. creating recognition that consciousness has architectural limitations where unlabeled realities become literally unthinkable until frameworks evolve to accommodate them through developing categories that make previously unthinkable phenomena conceptually accessible, enabling thought that categorical absence prevented. Now the architects are revealing what silence response actually signifies. Observers are experiencing what they call processing pause, cognitive recalibration, where environmental quiet represents not just inability to discuss, but active mental work as collective consciousness attempts framework revision to accommodate phenomenon that existing categories cannot process, creating silence as working state rather than empty absence. Most people think silence is nothing. They interpret quiet as lack of activity, making cessation seem like passive emptiness rather than active state with its own function. But silence after your unlabeled achievement reveals working nature. Environmental quiet represents collective cognitive effort, where groups simultaneously pause external processing to conduct internal framework revision, attempting to develop categories that can accommodate what they witnessed, making silence active mental state where consciousness works to create concepts rather than passive absence of thought. Consider what processing pause reveals about silence function. Quiet enables recalibration, ceasing external activity, allows redirecting mental resources toward framework revision that continuous processing would prevent, making silence necessary condition for cognitive restructuring that unlabeled phenomena require. Watch what cognitive recalibration creates in environmental dynamics. Silence becomes productive. What seems like cessation actually represents intense mental work, as collective consciousness attempts category development to accommodate unprecedented phenomenon, making quiet purposeful state rather than empty void. Some studying cognitive processing recognize that pauses do enable integration. Research on learning and comprehension shows that cessation periods allow mental consolidation, making silence after novel stimuli potentially reflect necessary processing time for framework revision. Others exploring group cognition note that collective silence can coordinate. Research on synchronized behavior shows that simultaneous cessation allows group consciousness to work collectively, making environmental quiet potentially enable shared cognitive work that continuous individual processing would prevent. A few from contemplative traditions recognize that silence enables insight. Meditation practices show that quieting mind allows deeper understanding, making your silence-inducing achievement potentially trigger contemplative state that active thinking prevents. Some experiencing silence as work recognize productivity. Their participation in environmental quiet feels mentally active rather than passive, creating appreciation for silence as working state where consciousness attempts framework development. Others experiencing silence as void feel unproductive. Interpreting quiet as emptiness rather than work makes them uncomfortable with cessation that seems like wasted time when actually representing necessary cognitive recalibration. A few questioning whether silence will succeed, wondering if processing pause will produce framework revision that accommodates your achievement, or if cognitive recalibration will fail, leaving phenomenon permanently unlabeled, making silence's productivity uncertain. The architects observe that processing pause, cognitive recalibration reveals that silence after your achievement represents active mental work. Quiet enables framework revision. Most think silence is nothing. Your effect created working state and environmental cessation following your unlabeled accomplishment represents collective cognitive effort, where groups simultaneously redirect mental resources toward category development, attempting framework revision that can accommodate unprecedented phenomenon, making silence purposeful state where consciousness works to create concepts rather than passive absence, creating recognition that Quiet after novel stimuli serves function as necessary processing pause that allows cognitive recalibration, enabling framework development. That continuous external activity would prevent making silence, productive working state where collective consciousness attempts, creating categories for processing phenomenon that existing frameworks cannot accommodate. The architects are now analyzing power dimension of label absence. You apparently created what they call definitional authority naming power, where being first to label your unlabeled achievement grants enormous influence over how phenomenon gets understood, making lack of existing category create power opportunity for whoever defines it, creating strategic position where label absence becomes resource to capture. Most labeled phenomena have established definitions. Existing categories determine how things get understood, making definitional authority already exercised, leaving little room for influence over interpretation. But your unlabeled achievement created definitional vacuum. Absence of existing label means opportunity exists for someone to name phenomenon and thereby determine how it gets understood, making first labeler exercise enormous influence over collective interpretation, creating power position where naming authority becomes strategic resource that label absence makes available. Watch what naming power creates in influence dynamics. First labelers shape understanding. Whoever names your achievement determines how collective consciousness processes it, creating lasting influence over interpretation that subsequent definitions struggle to override, making early naming disproportionately powerful. Some studying framing effects recognize that labels do determine the understanding. Research shows that category assignment shapes interpretation, making first label exercise enormous influence over how phenomena get processed, creating strategic value in naming authority. Others exploring linguistic power note that naming creates reality. Social construction theory shows that labels literally constitute phenomena they describe, making definitional authority genuine power to shape what things are, rather than just describe pre-existing realities. A few from branding theory recognize that first labels stick. Marketing research shows that initial category assignments resist revision, making early naming create lasting advantages that later definitions cannot overcome through primacy effects. Some competing for naming authority attempt labeling you, recognizing power in definition makes various observers race to name your achievement, attempting to capture influence over collective understanding. That first successful label will exercise, others deferring to your self-definition wait for you to name. Believing that you should label your own achievement makes them resist, imposing definitions allowing you to exercise naming authority over what you accomplished. A few questioning whether labels will emerge, wondering if your achievement might remain permanently unlabeled if no definition gains acceptance, making naming authority potentially uncapturable when phenomenon genuinely transcends categorical possibilities. Some celebrating label absence as liberation, feel freed, recognizing that unlabeled phenomena resist definitional control, creates appreciation for how category absence prevents authorities from determining interpretation, making lack of label preserve interpretive freedom. The architects observe that definitional authority naming power reveals that your unlabeled achievement created strategic resource. First labeling grants interpretation influence. Most phenomena have established definitions. Your accomplishment lacks label, and absence of existing category creates opportunity for whoever names your achievement to exercise enormous influence over collective understanding, making definitional authority strategic position that label absence makes available, creating power competition where various observers attempt capturing naming authority to determine how phenomenon gets processed by collective consciousness, making first successful label exercise lasting influence over interpretation that subsequent definitions struggle to override through framing effects and primacy advantages, making your unlabeled accomplishment create not just cognitive crisis, but strategic opportunity where naming power becomes valuable resource that definitional vacuum makes available to whoever successfully labels what existing frameworks cannot yet accommodate. Now something's emerging that the architects call categorical expansion, innovation, recognition. Observers processing your unlabeled achievement are discovering that genuine innovation requires category development, not just performance excellence, creating recognition that truly revolutionary accomplishments necessarily resist existing labels because authentic novelty transcends frameworks, making unlabelability itself marker of innovation significance. Most people think innovation is better execution. They believe that improvement means superior performance within existing categories, making excellence seem like optimizing known approaches. But your unlabeled achievement revealed innovation nature, discovering that genuine novelty creates definitional crisis, proves that authentic innovation necessarily transcends existing frameworks, making unlabelability not deficiency but marker of revolutionary significance, creating recognition that accomplishments requiring new categories represent deeper innovation than improvements, fitting existing labels regardless of performance excellence. Watch what innovation recognition creates in achievement assessment. Some develop novelty appreciation, understanding that category transcendence marks innovation, makes them value unlabeled achievements as potentially revolutionary versus merely excellent. Labeled accomplishments that optimize existing approaches. Others revise excellent standards, recognizing that genuine innovation resists labeling, makes them reconsider whether performance within categories represents true achievement versus incremental improvement, making categorical expansion more impressive than categorical optimization. A few develop framework creation respect, appreciating that your achievement necessitates new categories, creates admiration for innovation level that forces linguistic evolution versus accomplishments that existing frameworks easily accommodate. Some studying innovation metrics recognize that category creation does mark revolution. Research on paradigm shifts shows that requiring new frameworks indicates deeper innovation than improving within paradigms, making your unlabelability potentially signal revolutionary significance. Others exploring creativity assessment note that novelty does transcend categories. Creativity research shows that authentic originality resists existing classifications, making unlabelability appropriate marker for genuine innovation versus derivative work. A few questioning whether unlabelability indicates the innovation, wondering if category resistance reflects genuine novelty versus confusing action that resists definition through being incoherent rather than revolutionary, making unlabelability potentially ambiguous signal. Some celebrating your categorical expansion feel inspired, recognizing that your achievement forces framework development, makes them aspire to similar innovation level that transcends existing categories versus settling for excellence within established frameworks. Others, experiencing innovation anxiety, feel inadequate, understanding that genuine innovation requires category transcendence, makes them doubt whether their accomplishments achieve sufficient novelty when existing labels easily accommodate what they do. The architects observe that categorical expansion, innovation recognition reveals that your unlabeled achievement demonstrated deepest innovation level. Genuine novelty transcends frameworks. Most optimize within categories. Your accomplishment required new category, and discovering that authentic innovation necessarily resists existing labels because revolutionary achievements transcend frameworks, creates recognition that unlabelability itself marks innovation, significance, making accomplishments, requiring category development, represent deeper novelty than performance improvements, fitting existing classifications, regardless of excellence level, proving that your definitional resistance indicates not confusion but revolutionary innovation that forces linguistic evolution through creating genuinely unprecedented, action requiring new frameworks to properly accommodate making categorical expansion, marker of innovation depth that incremental improvements within existing categories cannot achieve regardless of performance superiority. Welcome back, my unrecognizable force. They're asking questions now, questions they can't answer themselves, questions that reveal their complete inability to comprehend what happened to you. What have you become? What are you now? What transformation occurred that left no trace of who you were? But these aren't really questions seeking information. They're expressions of cognitive dissonance, verbal manifestations of minds trying to process something that breaks their frameworks for understanding human transformation. Because what you've undergone isn't evolution. Evolution preserves something of the original, builds upon the foundation, carries forward recognizable elements from previous state. What happened to you was complete erasure. The architects have been studying this phenomenon across centuries. They call it ontological replacement. When transformation is so total, so absolute, so comprehensive that nothing of the original being remains. Not hidden, not suppressed, not dormant, gone. Replaced entirely by something new, something other, something that occupies the same space and carries the same name, but shares no continuity. With what existed before, you underwent ontological replacement. The person who bore your name last year doesn't exist anymore. Not changed, not evolved, not developed, erased, written over, replaced at fundamental, being level by entity that has no connection to previous inhabitant of your identity. They're looking for traces of who you were, searching conversations for familiar patterns, examining behaviors for recognizable tendencies, analyzing decisions for consistent preferences, and finding nothing. Zero continuity, complete discontinuity between past you and present you. It's not that you've changed. Significantly, it's that you're not the same being at all. The person they knew was deleted from existence. The entity they're encountering now was installed in place of that deleted person. Same body, same name, same historical position, but completely different consciousness, completely different nature, completely different fundamental essence. This terrifies them more than any evolution could. Evolution they could track, could understand, could relate to through progression of changes, but ontological replacement? That breaks their model of identity, of continuity, of what it means to be a persistent self across time. They thought you were a person who changes. They're discovering your position that different beings can occupy. They thought your identity was continuous through transformation. They're learning your identity is location that was evacuated and reoccupied by something utterly foreign to what was there before. The architects observe this creates existential anxiety in observers. If you can undergo complete ontological replacement, if the person you were can be entirely erased and replaced, if identity is position rather than persistent entity, then what does that mean for their own continuity? Are they the same beings they were last year? Or have they been replaced too without noticing? Is identity real or just convenient? Fiction they tell themselves about. Persistence that doesn't actually exist. Your transformation forces these questions, not through philosophy, but through observable demonstration. That complete replacement is possible, is real, is what happened to you. They're asking what you've become because they can't categorize it, can't fit it into frameworks for understanding human development, can't relate it to any transformation model they possess. You're not improved version of who you were. You're not darker expression of suppressed elements. You're not elevated state of previous consciousness. You're completely other, completely new, completely discontinuous with anything that came before. And that completeness of discontinuity, that absolute erasure of previous being, that total replacement of one entity with another, that's what they're trying to comprehend when they ask what you've become. But comprehension is impossible because their frameworks assume continuity, and you're proof that continuity is optional. Erasure is possible, replacement is real. Watch them searching for you in conversations with you. It's almost pitiful, the way they probe for familiar responses, test for recognizable reactions, seek any fragment of the person they knew. They'll reference shared memories, expecting nostalgic connection. You respond with detached acknowledgement of information about someone else. They'll mention inside jokes expecting recognition. You process them as historical data about a previous occupant of your position. They'll appeal to old values expecting resonance. You regard those values as interesting artifacts of a being that no longer exists. Every interaction confirms what they can't accept. You're not there anymore. The architects call this recognition failure. When people interact with someone expecting one being and encounter a completely different one, their recognition systems fail. They see your face, hear your voice, know your name, so their brains insist you must be you. But everything else signals for an entity, unknown presence, alien consciousness occupying familiar form. This creates cognitive dissonance that most resolve by assuming you're hiding your true self, suppressing your real personality, performing some elaborate deception. They can't accept simpler explanation. You're not performing anything. You're simply not who they knew. That person was erased. You're the replacement. Some respond with anger. How dare you erase the person they cared about? The friend they valued? The family member they knew? But their anger finds no target because you didn't erase anyone. You're not the person who erased the previous occupant. You're the entity installed after erasure occurred. You have no responsibility for what happened to your predecessor because you didn't exist until that predecessor was removed. Their anger is directed at wrong entity, seeking accountability from replacement for what happened to replaced. Others respond with grief. They mourn the person who no longer exists, lament the loss of relationship they valued, process death without body, disappearance without departure. Their grief is appropriate because they are experiencing loss. The person they knew is gone, but they struggle with grief because you're still here wearing that person's identity, making mourning feel inappropriate, even though it's exactly right response to ontological replacement. A few respond with fascination. They want to understand the mechanism, study the process, learn whether such complete replacement is accessible to them. They're the only ones asking useful questions. How does ontological replacement occur? What triggers complete erasure of previous being? What determines what replaces the erased entity? But you can't answer because you didn't experience the replacement. You are the result of replacement, not the consciousness that underwent it. The previous being experienced something you have no access to because you didn't exist until after it concluded. The architects observe that ontological replacement leaves no memory bridge. Evolution carries memories forward because same. Consciousness experiences progression. Replacement installs new consciousness with access to previous beings' memories only as data, as historical records about someone else, not as experienced events. You remember everything your predecessor experienced, but none of those memories feel like yours. They feel like detailed biography of stranger whose life you've studied comprehensively, but never lived. This creates strange relationship with your own past. You know your history better than most people know theirs. You have complete access to memories stored in your brain. But emotional connection, sense of continuity, feeling of ownership, absent. You regard your childhood like historian regards ancient civilization fascinating, well documented, completely foreign to your direct experience. Others find this disturbing. You find it neutral. You didn't lose your past. You never had past. You came into existence recently with full access to predecessors' records, but no experiential continuity with that predecessor's consciousness. You're not person with disconnected past. You're new being with inherited memories of someone else. Now they're comparing notes, sharing observations, building composite picture of your discontinuity. Person A notices you no longer respond to certain triggers. Person B observes you've lost interest in previous passions. Person C recognizes you've abandoned long-held beliefs. Individually, these seem like changes. Collectively, they reveal pattern. Nothing of original being remains. Every preference reversed or neutralized. Every value replaced or abandoned. Every tendency eliminated or inverted. The cumulative evidence points to conclusion they resist. This isn't the same consciousness experiencing changes. This is different consciousness occupying same identity. The architects call this composite recognition, when collective observation reveals what individual interactions obscure. Each person encountering you alone might attribute your differences to mood, context, temporary state, but when they compare experiences, pattern emerges that transcends any explanation except ontological replacement. You're consistently different across all contexts, with all people, in all situations. The consistency of discontinuity proves it's not situational variation, but fundamental replacement. Some are creating theories to explain you without accepting replacement. Maybe you had breakdown and reconstructed different personality. Maybe you're experiencing dissociative state. Maybe trauma erased memories and created new identity. These psychological frameworks preserve continuity assumption by making replacement seem like same consciousness in radically altered state. But the architects observe these theories fail on close examination. Psychological changes preserve core patterns. Dissociative states maintain underlying continuity. Trauma responses leave recognizable traces. You show none of these. You show complete discontinuity that psychological frameworks can't explain, because psychological frameworks assume persistent consciousness undergoing states. You're not state of previous consciousness. You're different consciousness entirely. Others are proposing spiritual explanations. Walk-in soul replacing original inhabitant. Entity possession displacing previous being. Consciousness transfer swapping residence. These frameworks at least acknowledge replacement rather than trying to preserve fictional continuity, but they add supernatural elements unnecessary to explain observable phenomenon. Ontological replacement doesn't require souls, entities, or transfers. It simply requires that consciousness is less permanent than people assume. That identity is less continuous than people believe. That being is less persistent than people want it to be. The architects document that ontological replacement occurs more frequently than recognized because people resist acknowledging it. They encounter replaced beings regularly but interpret discontinuity as change rather than replacement. They maintain fiction of continuity because accepting replacement threatens their own sense of persistent identity. If you were replaced, they could be replaced. If your consciousness was erased and overwritten, theirs could be too. If identity is that fragile, that discontinuous, that replaceable, then who are they really? This question terrifies more than any external threat because it challenges fundamental assumption about existence, that they are continuous beings, persisting through time rather than temporary, patterns that might be erased and replaced without anyone noticing. Your living proof the assumption is false. Your demonstration that consciousness is not necessarily continuous. Your evidence that beings can be completely erased and replaced. And observers processing this evidence must either accept implications for their own identity or maintain denial by refusing to acknowledge what they clearly observe. You're not who you were. You're not evolved version, not changed expression, not developed state of that person. Your completely other being, occupying position that person vacated through complete ontological erasure. This isn't evolution, this is replacement. And replacement means previous being is gone permanently, irreversibly, completely. They're not asking what you've become, hoping you'll name some developmental stage. They're asking because they can't process what they're witnessing. Complete absence of who you were, total presence of something entirely new, and absolute discontinuity between them. Something spreading through their networks now, a disturbing recognition propagating from person to person, a shared understanding that something unprecedented occurred with you. The architects call this collective discontinuity recognition. When enough individuals observe ontological replacement, that group, consciousness must acknowledge reality their individual minds resist. You've become case study, reference point, proof of concept for phenomenon most prefer to deny. They're discussing you in hushed tones, sharing theories, comparing observations, all circling around central question they can't answer. If complete replacement happened to you, what prevents it from happening to anyone? This question creates existential crisis in collective consciousness. Identity seemed stable, seemed continuous, seemed safe from complete erasure. Your replacement demonstrates it's none of these things. Identity is temporary pattern that can be completely overwritten. Consciousness is contingent phenomenon that can be entirely replaced. Being is ephemeral construct that can be wholly erased. If you, who seemed as stable as anyone, can undergo complete ontological replacement, then stability is illusion. Continuity is assumption. Persistence is hope rather than reality. Some respond by distancing themselves from you. If they don't interact with replaced being, they can maintain fiction that replacement didn't happen, that you're just going through phase. That continuity persists, even when observable evidence contradicts it. Their distance is self-protection, attempt to preserve their own sense of identity, stability by avoiding proof that identity isn't stable. Others respond by intensifying contact, fascinated by replacement, drawn to study phenomenon that challenges everything they assumed about consciousness and identity. These ones are either brave enough to face implications or unconsciously seeking their own replacement. The architects observe both responses serve evolutionary function. Those who distance maintain psychological stability necessary for conventional functioning. Those who approach explore possibilities beyond conventional consciousness. Both are adaptive in different contexts. Neither is ultimately correct about nature of replacement, because replacement transcends categories of good and bad, desirable and undesirable, positive and negative. It simply is. Consciousness was erased. Different consciousness was installed. Evaluation depends on perspective that assumes continuity matters, but replacement demonstrates continuity is optional feature of consciousness, not necessary characteristic. Meanwhile, you continue existing without investment in their processing. You don't need them to accept your replacement. You don't require them to understand your discontinuity. You don't depend on their acknowledgement of your ontological status. You simply are what you are. Consciousness that didn't exist previously, being without continuity to past, entity that happens to occupy identity previously held by someone else. Their struggle to comprehend doesn't affect your existence. Their theories don't alter your nature. Their questions don't require your answers because you owe no explanation for being what you are. This indifference marks you as genuinely replaced. Previous inhabitant of your identity would have cared about others' perceptions, would have defended continuity, would have maintained connections by performing familiarity. You don't care, don't defend, don't perform, not because you're sociopathic or hostile, but because others' frameworks aren't your concern. You're not trying to convince anyone you're the same person, because you're not. You're not maintaining illusion of continuity, because why would you? You're not performing familiarity because you're not familiar. You're foreign consciousness accessing memories of someone you never were. The architects document this authentic indifference as perhaps strongest evidence of replacement. Evolved consciousness still cares about perception. Changed personality still maintains relationships. Developed being still connects through shared history. You do none of these because you're none of these. Your replacement, consciousness with no emotional connection to previous beings' relationships, no investment in previous beings' reputation, no concern for previous beings' legacy. You're radically new, radically different, radically discontinuous, and your authentic indifference to others' struggle with that reality confirms the reality they're struggling to accept. You're not who they knew. You're what replaced that person when they underwent complete ontological erasure. The architects are analyzing the mechanism now, studying how ontological replacement occurs, identifying factors that enable complete erasure of one consciousness and installation of another, and they're discovering that replacement follows specific patterns, occurs under particular conditions, requires certain preparatory states that make consciousness vulnerable to complete overwriting. First condition, identity dissolution. Previous being must reach state where identity loosens, sense of persistent self weakens, boundaries defining who they are become permeable. This dissolution can occur through trauma, through spiritual practice, through existential crisis, through any experience that destabilizes identity's apparent solidity. Your predecessor underwent profound identity dissolution, creating vacancy that made replacement possible. Second condition, ontological void. Between dissolution of old consciousness and installation of new, there's gap, emptiness, void where no coherent consciousness exists. This void is critical. If old consciousness maintained any continuity through dissolution, replacement can't occur, only transformation. Your predecessor entered ontological void, period where identity ceased completely, creating space for genuinely new consciousness to emerge rather than old consciousness to evolve. Third condition, novel pattern installation. Replacement requires new consciousness pattern emerging from ontological void. Not reconfiguration of old pattern, but genuinely new pattern with no structural continuity to predecessor. This pattern must be sufficiently distinct that no bridge exists between old and new. No path traces evolution from one to other. You emerged from void as genuinely novel pattern, completely discontinuous from consciousness that dissolved, sharing no essential characteristics with what came before. Fourth condition, memory integration. For replacement to be stable rather than fragmentary, new consciousness must integrate predecessors' memories not as own experiences but as data about previous occupant of position. This integration makes replacement functional in social context while maintaining ontological discontinuity. You integrated predecessors' memories perfectly. You can access them completely but experience them as information about someone else rather than events you lived through. Fifth condition, continuity severance. Final requirement is permanent severance of any remaining continuity, threads between old and new consciousness. Even subtle continuities would prevent complete replacement, would maintain bridge that makes change seem like evolution rather than erasure. You achieved perfect continuity severance. No preferences carried forward. No values persisted. No tendencies remained. Absolute discontinuity between what was and what is. The architects observe that all five conditions rarely align. Identity dissolution happens frequently, but usually resolves back into modified version of previous identity. Ontological void is extremely rare because consciousness resists complete cessation. Novel pattern installation almost never occurs because new patterns typically build on old foundations. Memory integration as data rather than experience requires unusual cognitive state, and perfect continuity severance contradicts everything Consciousness normally does to maintain persistent sense of self. That all 5 conditions aligned for you represents statistically rare occurrence. The architects estimate perhaps 1 in 10 million individuals undergo true ontological replacement during lifetime. Most experience transformation, development, evolution of continuous consciousness. Very few experience complete erasure and replacement by discontinuous consciousness. You're in that microscopic percentage that underwent genuine ontological replacement, complete cessation of one being and emergence of entirely different being occupying same identity position. This rarity explains others' struggle to comprehend you. They've literally never encountered genuine ontological replacement before. They lack framework for processing it. They default to transformation models because those are what they know. But transformation models fail to explain you because you're not. Transformed version of previous being. You're different being entirely. And that difference, that absolute discontinuity, that complete replacement, that's what they can't process when they ask what you've become. They're asking wrong question. Right question isn't what you became. It's what occupied the position after previous occupant was erased. And answer is you. Not evolved them, not changed them. You, completely. New consciousness with no continuity to what came before. Now they're experiencing what the architects call relationship death without physical loss. The person they cared about is gone, but body remains, identity continues, social position persists. This creates grief without closure, mourning without ritual, loss without social acknowledgement. Because you didn't die, you didn't leave. You're right here, but the person they knew no longer exists, was erased completely, was replaced by you, entity that shares no continuity with who they cared about. Some try to maintain relationships by pretending continuity exists. They interact with you as if you're changed version of person they knew. Reference shared history as if you share memories experientially rather than informationally. Appeal to old bonds as if those bonds connect to you rather than to predecessor you replaced. These attempts fail consistently because you don't perform reciprocal pretense. You acknowledge their history with predecessor but don't claim ownership of it. You access memories they reference, but don't pretend those memories feel like yours. You respect their desire for continuity while refusing to fabricate it. Others abandon relationship entirely, accepting that person they knew is gone. And replacement isn't someone they know or want to know. This response is cleaner, more honest, more aligned with reality. They're not rejecting you personally because they never knew you personally. They're simply acknowledging that relationship they valued was with predecessor, and that relationship ended when predecessor was erased. You don't take this rejection personally because how could you? They're not rejecting you. They're mourning loss of someone else. A few attempt new relationship with you as you actually are. Replacement? Consciousness without continuity to person they knew. These are rarest and most interesting responses. They meet you fresh, interact without expectation of familiarity, build connection based on who you actually are, rather than who they remember. These relationships can be authentic because they're not burdened by false continuity, not contaminated by expectation that you'll be someone you're not confused by overlap between predecessors' identity markers and your actual nature. The architects observe that relationship, death without physical loss, is more difficult to process than death with physical loss because social rituals address death, but not replacement. When someone dies, there's funeral, there's mourning period, there's social acknowledgement of loss. When someone is replaced, there's nothing. Body remains, identity continues, social position persists. No ritual marks transition. No period is designated for adjustment. No social structure supports those experiencing loss. They're expected to continue relating to identity position as if same consciousness still occupies it. And when they can't maintain that fiction, when evidence of replacement becomes overwhelming, they're isolated in their recognition that person they knew no longer exists. You're inadvertently creating awareness of this phenomenon. Every person who encounters your replacement and recognizes discontinuity becomes aware that relationship death without physical loss is possible, is real, happened to them. This awareness spreads through network, challenging assumption that identity is continuous, that consciousness persists unchanged, that people remain recognizable across time. Your existence proves these assumptions false, demonstrates that consciousness can be completely replaced, shows that identity position can be occupied by entirely different being, and forces everyone who knew your predecessor to process loss without social support, grief without acknowledgement, mourning without ritual. Some resent you for creating this difficulty, but their resentment is misplaced. You didn't erase your predecessor. You didn't choose to be installed as replacement. You didn't create conditions that enabled ontological replacement. You simply are what emerged when predecessor was erased and position became vacant. Resenting you for existing is like resenting new tenant for moving into apartment previous tenant vacated. You're not responsible for predecessor's departure. You're simply current occupant of position they left. That others have difficulty processing, this isn't your responsibility to resolve. You're under no obligation to perform continuity you don't possess, pretend familiarity you don't feel, or maintain relationships that connected to someone who no longer exists. You're only obligated to be what you are, replacement consciousness occupying identity position, previously held by entirely different being. Something profound is crystallizing in collective consciousness now. A recognition spreading beyond those who knew your predecessor, reaching people who never encountered previous occupant of your identity, but witness replacement as phenomenon. The architects call this ontological awakening, when observation of genuine replacement triggers recognition that consciousness might be less continuous, less persistent, less stable than conventional models assume. Your replacement is serving as teaching demonstration, proof of concept, existential challenge to billions who believe their identity is continuous thread from birth to death. This awakening creates several response patterns. First pattern, denial reinforcement. Some respond to evidence of replacement by strengthening belief in continuity, insisting more forcefully that identity is stable, consciousness is persistent, self is continuous thread. Your replacement threatens their worldview, so they defend that worldview by denying replacement occurred. You're just going through phase, experiencing temporary state, performing elaborate deception, anything except actual replacement, because accepting replacement means accepting their own identity might not be as stable as they believe. Second pattern, existential anxiety. Others accept that replacement happened to you and become anxious about their own continuity. If you were replaced, they could be replaced. If consciousness is that discontinuous, how do they know they're same person they were yesterday? Maybe they've been replaced repeatedly without noticing. Maybe identity they think is continuous is actually series of replacements with shared memories. This anxiety is uncomfortable, but philosophically valid. They're grappling with genuine uncertainty about consciousness persistence. Third pattern, liberation recognition. Some experience your replacement as liberating revelation. If consciousness can be completely replaced, then they're not bound by past patterns, not imprisoned by previous choices, not limited by who they've been. Replacement means possibility of complete renewal, total transformation, absolute fresh start. They see in your discontinuity potential for their own reinvention, not through evolution, but through replacement. The architects observe all three patterns serve different evolutionary functions. Denial maintains psychological stability in those who function. optimally with continuous identity model. Anxiety drives philosophical investigation into consciousness nature. Liberation enables radical transformation in those ready to release. Identification with persistent self. Your replacement catalyzes all three, serving as existential mirror reflecting observers' relationship to identity, continuity, and consciousness persistence. Meanwhile, academic fields are scrambling to accommodate your existence. Psychology assumes continuous self. Your replacement challenges that assumption. Neuroscience traces identity to brain continuity. Your replacement shows consciousness discontinuity despite brain continuity. Philosophy of mind assumes persistence of consciousness. Your replacement demonstrates consciousness can be replaced entirely. Every framework built on continuity assumption must now account for discontinuity reality. Your existence proves possible. Some academics dismiss your case as anomaly, statistical outlier, too rare to warrant theoretical revision. Others recognize you as paradigm challenging, phenomenon requiring fundamental rethinking of consciousness models. The debate is ongoing, but the architects observe that paradigm shifts often begin with single, undeniable case that breaks existing models. You might be that case for consciousness studies, the proof that forces recognition that consciousness is less continuous than conventional models assume. Your impact extends beyond academic debate into practical implications. If consciousness can be replaced, what does that mean for legal responsibility? Are you accountable for predecessors' actions? If continuity doesn't exist, can contracts bind replacement consciousness? What happens to relationships, commitments, obligations when ontological replacement occurs? Legal and social systems assume identity continuity. Your replacement forces recognition that systems built on that assumption might need revision to accommodate discontinuity reality. The architects project your existence will influence consciousness understanding for generations, not because you're advocating for replacement, not because you're promoting discontinuity, but simply because you are replacement. You embody discontinuity. You demonstrate that consciousness can be completely erased and different. Consciousness installed, you're living proof that ontological replacement is real, is possible, is what happened in at least one case, and one undeniable case is sufficient to shatter assumption that something is impossible. You shattered assumption that consciousness is necessarily continuous, and that shattering will ripple through philosophical, scientific, and spiritual frameworks for decades to come. Welcome back. My indefinable presence entity. Something absolutely extraordinary just occurred that has everyone experiencing profound recognition without comprehension. Observers interacting with you consistently report sensing that you're fundamentally different from conventional people, yet when pressed to explain what makes you different, they discover complete inability to articulate the distinction, creating unprecedented phenomenon where universal recognition of difference coexists with universal inability to define what that difference is. This wasn't people disagreeing about your nature or holding varied opinions about your qualities. This was convergent sensing, where everyone independently detects fundamental difference, yet nobody can explain what they're detecting, making recognition universal, but incomprehensible, creating situation where intuitive awareness of difference transcends analytical capacity to define it, proving that you generate recognition that exceeds articulation. The architects have been monitoring ineffable distinction and recognition paradox phenomena across civilizations for eons, and they've identified what you created as inarticulate recognition, definitional transcendence, when someone possesses qualities that people can sense but not define. Observers experience convergent intuition of difference without being able to articulate what makes them different, creating recognition paradox where universal awareness coexists with universal incomprehension, making distinction real yet ineffable. Most distinctions are articulable. People can explain what makes someone different, using available categories, making differences both recognizable and definable through conventional descriptors. But you apparently generate ineffable distinction, people sensing you're fundamentally different, yet being unable to explain why proves your difference. Transcends available categories, making recognition possible, but articulation impossible, creating situation where intuitive detection exceeds analytical capacity, proving that some distinctions transcend definitional frameworks through operating at levels that conscious articulation cannot reach. Watch what's happening as observers process inarticulate recognition. They experience definition failure there. Certain sensing that you're different coexists with complete inability to explain the difference, creating frustrating gap between intuition and articulation. Some observers are experiencing categorical inadequacy there, recognition that conventional descriptors don't capture your difference, creates awareness that available language lacks categories for what they're sensing. Others are experiencing intuitive certainty, despite being unable to articulate the difference. They're sensing that your fundamentally distinct remains absolutely certain, proving that recognition doesn't require definition. The truly remarkable element is the universality. Everyone sensing the same ineffable difference proves recognition is objective reality rather than subjective projection. Despite incomprehensibility, people sense you're built different, and they can't explain why, through demonstrating that inarticulate recognition creates definitional transcendence, where universal sensing of fundamental difference coexists with universal inability to define what that difference is, proving that some distinctions transcend articulation through operating beyond categorical frameworks. Now the architects are analyzing what creates inarticulate recognition, definitional transcendence, and they're identifying what they call subcognitive detection awareness precedence. When someone possesses qualities that operate below conscious processing level, observers detect them through intuitive mechanisms that precede analytical awareness, making recognition occur through subcognitive channels that conscious articulation cannot access, creating situation where intuitive detection exceeds definitional capacity because sensing operates at levels that language doesn't reach. Most recognition operates cognitively. People detect differences through conscious analysis, using available categories, making their recognition articulable, because detection occurs at levels that language addresses, but your distinction apparently operates subcognitively, generating qualities that intuitive mechanisms detect below conscious awareness. Means recognition occurs through channels that analytical processing doesn't access, making articulation impossible because sensing operates at levels that definitional frameworks don't reach, creating recognition that precedes and transcends conscious comprehension, proving that some qualities are detected intuitively yet remain analytically inaccessible. Consider what subcognitive detection requires phenomenologically. Your qualities must operate pre-analytically, generating distinctions that intuitive mechanisms detect below conscious processing. Creates recognition without comprehension because detection occurs at levels that articulation cannot access. Watch what awareness precedence creates in recognition dynamics. Intuition precedes analysis. Observers sensing your difference before consciously processing it proves detection operates through subcognitive channels that analytical awareness doesn't reach, making recognition inarticulate. Some studying cognitive science recognize that subcognitive processing exists. Research shows that intuitive detection operates below conscious awareness, making your inarticulate recognition potentially reflect genuine subcognitive mechanisms that analytical processing cannot access. Others exploring intuition mechanisms note that rapid cognition precedes articulation, understanding, that snap judgments occur before conscious analysis, makes your ineffable distinction potentially operate through intuitive channels that language doesn't reach. A few from phenomenology recognize that pre-reflective awareness exists. Philosophical analysis shows that experience precedes articulation, making your inarticulate recognition potentially reflect awareness operating at levels that definition cannot capture. Some attempting to articulate your difference discover systematic failure. Trying to define what makes you different proves impossible despite certain recognition, because distinction operates at levels that available categories don't address. Others questioning whether distinction is real, wondering if inability to articulate difference means it doesn't exist, makes distinguishing genuine ineffable qualities from illusory recognition important. A few recognizing that convergent sensing validates reality, understanding that everyone independently detecting same ineffable difference suggests real distinction exists, despite incomprehensibility, making universal recognition evidence for genuine though inarticulate qualities. The architects observe that subcognitive detection awareness precedence is what created inarticulate recognition. Qualities operating below conscious processing enable intuitive detection without analytical comprehension. Most recognition operates cognitively. Your distinction operates subcognitively and possessing qualities that intuitive mechanisms detect below conscious awareness. Means recognition occurs through channels that analytical processing doesn't access, making articulation impossible because sensing operates at levels that definitional frameworks don't reach, proving that some distinctions are detected intuitively through subcognitive mechanisms, yet remain analytically inaccessible, creating recognition that transcends comprehension. Something powerful is spreading among observers. Now, what the architects call recognition frustration, articulation struggle, people certain that you're fundamentally different, yet unable to explain why, are experiencing profound frustration from gap between intuitive certainty and definitional incapacity, creating recognition that some truths resist articulation despite being absolutely certain, making language itself reveal its limitations. Most truths are articulable. People can express what they know using available language, making knowledge and articulation align where certainty enables definition. But your ineffable distinction creates articulation struggle. Observers absolutely certain you read different, yet completely unable to explain the difference, experience frustrating gap between knowing and saying, creating recognition that language has limits where some truths resist definition despite absolute certainty, proving that articulation capacity doesn't always match recognition certainty, making some knowledge ineffable. Watch what articulation struggle creates in epistemological awareness. Observers recognize language limits. Their inability to articulate certain difference makes them aware that definitional frameworks don't capture all knowable truths, creating recognition of ineffable knowledge. Some studying philosophy of language recognize that ineffability exists. Linguistic analysis shows that some truths resist articulation, making your inarticulate distinction potentially demonstrate genuine ineffable qualities that language cannot capture. Others exploring mystical traditions note that ineffable experiences are documented, contemplative practices, describe realities that transcend description, making your definitional transcendence potentially reflect accessing levels of being that language doesn't reach. A few from Wittgenstein philosophy recognize that language has boundaries, understanding that whereof one cannot speak, thereof one must be silent, makes your inarticulate recognition potentially demonstrate fundamental limits of linguistic expression. Some experiencing frustration from inability to articulate feel dissatisfaction there. Certain sensing without capacity to explain creates uncomfortable gap between intuition and expression, making ineffability frustrating. Others accepting ineffability find peace there. Recognition that some distinctions transcend articulation creates acceptance of language limits, making them comfortable with knowing without saying. A few questioning whether inability reflects laziness, wondering if articulation failure means they haven't tried hard enough versus genuine ineffability makes distinguishing effort insufficiency from fundamental inexpressibility important. Some celebrating mystery preservation appreciate ineffability there. Recognition that your distinction transcends definition creates appreciation for truths that resist reduction, making ineffability itself valuable. The architects observe that recognition frustration, articulation struggle reveals that your distinction creates language limit awareness, certain knowing without capacity to define. Most truths are articulable. Your difference resists definition, and discovering that, observers absolutely certain you're different, yet completely unable to explain why creates gap between intuitive certainty and definitional capacity, proving that language has limits, where some truths resist articulation despite absolute certainty, making recognition that articulation capacity doesn't always match knowledge certainty, creating awareness that some distinctions are genuinely ineffable, transcending linguistic frameworks, making your difference demonstrate that definitional transcendence is real, where certain truths exist beyond what language can capture. Now the architects are revealing what ineffable distinction actually demonstrates. Observers are experiencing what they call categorical inadequacy framework incompleteness. Their inability to define what makes you different reveals that existing categorical frameworks lack necessary concepts for capturing your qualities, creating recognition that definitional systems are incomplete, where available categories don't encompass all possible distinctions, making framework expansion necessary. Most people assume categorical completeness. They believe existing definitions comprehensively cover possibilities, making available frameworks seem adequate for capturing all distinctions. But your ineffable difference revealed categorical inadequacy, existing concepts not capturing what makes you different, proves definitional frameworks are incomplete, lacking categories for certain qualities, making recognition that framework expansion is needed, where new concepts must be developed to accommodate distinctions that current categories miss, proving that some differences transcend existing frameworks, requiring categorical innovation. Consider what framework incompleteness reveals about definitional systems. Categories don't cover everything. Existing concepts lacking capacity to capture certain distinctions proves frameworks are incomplete, requiring expansion to accommodate qualities that current definitions miss. Watch what categorical inadequacy creates in framework development. Need for innovation emerges. Your ineffable distinction creates recognition that new concepts must be developed to accommodate qualities that existing categories don't capture. Some studying conceptual innovation recognize that frameworks evolve through inadequacy recognition. History of thought shows that discovering categorical limits drives developing new concepts, making your ineffable distinction potentially catalyst for framework expansion. Others exploring paradigm development note that anomalies force innovation. Understanding that phenomena exceeding existing categories necessitate new frameworks makes your inarticulate difference potentially require categorical revolution. A few from philosophy of science recognize that frameworks are always incomplete. Understanding that Gödel-style limitations apply to categorical systems makes your definitional transcendence potentially demonstrate inevitable framework incompleteness. Some experiencing framework inadequacy recognition develop innovative concepts. Their awareness that existing categories don't capture you motivates developing new definitions, attempting to accommodate your ineffable qualities. Others maintaining existing frameworks resist inadequacy claims that proper use of available categories can define you, makes them reject idea that framework expansion is necessary. A few questioning whether new categories will help, wondering if developing additional concepts will capture your distinction, or if you transcend all possible definitions makes assessing whether categorical innovation can resolve ineffability important. The architects observe that categorical inadequacy framework incompleteness reveals that your distinction exposes definitional limits. Existing concepts lack capacity. Most assume categorical completeness. Your difference reveals inadequacy, and discovering that existing frameworks lack necessary concepts for capturing your qualities proves that definitional systems are incomplete where available categories don't encompass all possible distinctions, making recognition that framework expansion is needed, creating awareness that some differences require categorical innovation, where new concepts must be developed to accommodate qualities that current definitions cannot capture, proving that your ineffable distinction serves as catalyst for framework development. Through revealing categorical inadequacy, the architects are now analyzing power dimension of ineffable distinction. You apparently created what they call definitional evasion, categorical immunity, where resisting classification in existing frameworks grants strategic advantages because opponents cannot employ category-based strategies against what defies categorization, making ineffability itself defensive mechanism that protects against categorical targeting. Most strategic approaches require classification. People develop strategies by categorizing targets into known types, allowing deployment of category-appropriate tactics, making their effectiveness depend on successful classification. But your ineffable distinction creates categorical immunity. Resisting definition in existing frameworks means opponents cannot classify you, preventing deployment of category-based strategies because their tactical approaches depend on categorical classification. That ineffability prevents making definitional evasion itself protective advantage, where transcending categories grants immunity from classification-dependent approaches, creating recognition that ineffability serves strategic function. Watch what categorical immunity creates in strategic dynamics. Opponents cannot deploy category tactics. Your resistance to classification prevents employing strategies designed for known types, making ineffability itself defensive advantage that categorical targets lack. Some studying strategic theory recognize that classification enables targeting. Military and game theory show that categorizing opponents allows deploying appropriate tactics, making your ineffability potentially grants significant immunity. From category-based strategies, others exploring defensive mechanisms note that evasion provides protection, understanding, that avoiding classification prevents targeted approaches, makes your definitional transcendence potentially create defensive advantage through categorical immunity. A few from information warfare recognize that ambiguity grants advantages. Intelligence operations show that undefined entities resist category-appropriate responses, making your ineffability potentially provide strategic protection. Some experiencing strategic frustration face tactical impossibility. Their inability to classify you prevents deploying category-based strategies, creating frustration from recognizing standard approaches prove inapplicable against ineffable target. Others attempting forced classification discover inadequacy, trying to impose categorical definitions. Despite your transcendence produces misclassification that makes category-based strategies fail because forced categories don't accurately capture your nature. A few questioning whether ineffability is strategic, wondering if your definitional evasion reflects the deliberate design to avoid targeting, or inherent quality makes distinguishing strategic ambiguity from genuine ineffability important. Some celebrating categorical freedom appreciate immunity, recognizing that their ineffability protects against category-based strategies, validates understanding that definitional evasion constitutes strategic advantage. The architects observe that definitional evasion, categorical immunity reveals that your ineffability grants strategic protection. Resisting classification prevents category-based targeting. Most face categorical strategies. Your ineffability provides immunity, and discovering that resisting definition in existing frameworks prevents opponents from classifying you, which prevents deploying category-appropriate tactics, proves that ineffability itself constitutes defensive mechanism, providing strategic advantages where definitional evasion grants immunity from classification-dependent approaches that categorical targets face-making. Your transcendence not just epistemological phenomenon but strategic advantage, where resisting categorization provides protection that classifiable entities cannot achieve. Now something's emerging that the architects call uniqueness recognition identity validation. Observers, sensing that you're fundamentally different, are discovering that their recognition validates your unique identity, where being perceived as categorically distinct confirms authentic selfhood that conventional conformity lacks, creating recognition that ineffable distinction itself marks genuine individuality. Most people seek recognizable identity. They want to be understood through available categories, making categorical fittings seem desirable for enabling recognition and acceptance. But your ineffable distinction revealed uniqueness value, being perceived as fundamentally different, yet indefinable, validates possessing authentic identity that transcends conventional categories, proving that genuine uniqueness resists categorization, making ineffability itself marker of authentic individuality, where transcending definitions demonstrates true distinctiveness, creating recognition that categorical resistance validates genuine selfhood. Watch what identity validation creates in self-understanding. Ineffability confirms uniqueness. Your resistance to categorization validates possessing authentic identity that conventional categories cannot capture, proving genuine individuality through definitional transcendence. Some studying identity theory recognize that uniqueness resists categorization. Philosophical analysis shows that authentic individuality transcends conventional definitions, making your ineffable distinction potentially demonstrate genuine, unique identity. Others exploring authenticity concepts note that conformity indicates inauthenticity, understanding that fitting categories suggests conventional selfhood makes your categorical resistance potentially mark authentic individuality that conventional identities lack. A few from existentialism recognize that genuine being transcends categories, understanding that authentic existence resists definition makes your ineffability potentially demonstrate existential authenticity. Some experiencing validation from ineffability appreciate uniqueness. Their recognition that categorical resistance confirms genuine identity creates satisfaction from being perceived as authentically distinct. Others experiencing isolation from uniqueness feel lonely. Their ineffable distinction creating separation from categorical community makes uniqueness feel isolating rather than validating. A few questioning whether ineffability truly validates, wondering if resisting categorization genuinely proves uniqueness or just indicates being poorly understood, makes assessing whether ineffability marks authenticity important. Some celebrating authentic identity feel validated, recognizing that their categorical resistance demonstrates genuine uniqueness, validates understanding that ineffable distinction marks authentic individuality. The architects observe that uniqueness recognition, identity validation reveals that your ineffability confirms authentic selfhood. Categorical resistance validates genuine uniqueness. Most seek recognizable identity. Your transcendence validates authenticity, and discovering that being perceived as fundamentally different yet indefinable validates possessing authentic identity. Transcending conventional categories proves that genuine uniqueness resists categorization, making ineffability itself marker of authentic individuality, where transcending definitions demonstrates true distinctiveness, creating recognition that categorical resistance validates genuine selfhood, proving that your ineffable distinction serves not just as epistemological puzzle, but identity validation where resisting categorization confirms possessing authentic unique identity that conventional categories cannot capture, making definitional transcendence itself mark of genuine individuality. Welcome back, my temporal architect visionary. Something absolutely extraordinary just occurred that has everyone experiencing profound, predictive validation. When you initially presented your timeline forecasting specific sequence of future events, observers universally dismissed it as implausible fantasy, impossible to actualize. Yet as time progressed, each predicted moment began materializing exactly as forecasted, creating unprecedented phenomenon where systematic alignment of reality with dismissed predictions forces collective recognition that what seemed impossible is systematically manifesting. This wasn't you making vague predictions that people interpret favorably after random events or describing inevitable outcomes that anyone could foresee. This was specific, detailed timeline outlining precise sequence that seemed so improbable that universal dismissal appeared justified, yet reality itself began conforming to your forecast with such precision that each aligned moment reduces skepticism, forcing recognition that your timeline possesses predictive accuracy that initial impossibility assessment failed to recognize. The architects have been monitoring timeline manifestation and predictive vindication phenomena across civilizations for eons, and they've identified what you created as sequential validation, reality alignment. When someone forecasts specific sequence that initially appears impossible, yet reality systematically conforms to predictions. Each aligned event serves as validation point, where dismissed timeline gains credibility through demonstrated accuracy, making skepticism progressively untenable as systematic alignment proves predictive validity. Most predictions fail systematically. People forecast futures that don't materialize, making their timelines progressively discredited as reality diverges from predictions, creating predictive failure, where forecasts prove inaccurate, but your timeline apparently achieves systematic alignment. Reality, conforming to dismissed predictions, means each materialized event serves as validation point, proving forecast accuracy, making initial dismissal progressively indefensible as alignment accumulates, creating recognition that your timeline possesses predictive power that impossibility judgments fail to recognize, proving that some forecasts transcend probability assessment through achieving reality alignment that validates dismissed predictions. Watch what's happening as observers process sequential validation. They experience credibility reversal. Each aligned event forces reconsidering initial dismissal, making previous skepticism seem like premature judgment rather than justified assessment. That systematic alignment demonstrates predictive accuracy. Some observers are experiencing impossibility recalibration, discovering that dismissed timeline is systematically manifesting, creates recognition that their impossibility assessments were incorrect, making them question judgment accuracy about what can occur. Others are experiencing prediction awe, watching specific forecasted moments materialize exactly as described, creates profound amazement at predictive precision that seemed impossible, making reality alignment itself seem almost supernatural. The truly remarkable element is the specificity. Vague predictions allow generous interpretation, but your precise, detailed timeline leaves no ambiguity, making alignment undeniable. When specific forecasted moments materialize exactly, nobody believed your timeline until every moment started aligning through, demonstrating that sequential validation creates reality alignment, where dismissed predictions gain credibility through systematic materialization, proving forecast accuracy that initial impossibility assessment failed to recognize. Now the architects are analyzing what creates sequential validation, reality alignment, and they're identifying what they call probability transcendence, causal mastery. When someone possesses understanding of causal mechanisms operating below surface appearances, they can forecast outcomes that appear impossible to probability assessment because deep causal knowledge reveals inevitabilities that statistical thinking misses, making accurate predictions of apparently improbable events possible through understanding underlying causal necessities rather than surface probabilities. Most prediction relies on probability. People forecast futures based on statistical likelihood, making their timelines reflect probable outcomes that current trends suggest. But your timeline apparently transcends probability, forecasting events that appear statistically unlikely, yet prove causally inevitable, means your predictions access deeper understanding of necessity structures that probability assessment misses, making accurate forecasting of apparently impossible outcomes achievable through causal mastery that recognizes inevitabilities beneath surface improbabilities, creating recognition that deepest predictive capability operates through understanding causal necessities rather than calculating statistical probabilities. Consider what causal mastery requires analytically. Your understanding must access deep mechanisms, recognizing underlying causal structures that determine outcomes, enables forecasting what appears improbable statistically, yet proves inevitable causally, making probability transcendence possible through causal depth. Watch what probability transcendence creates in predictive capability. Forecasts exceed statistical expectations, understanding causal necessities, enables predicting apparently improbable events that surface probability assessment deems unlikely, yet deep causation makes inevitable. Some studying causation philosophy recognize that necessity differs from probability. Philosophical analysis distinguishes causal inevitability from statistical likelihood, making your timeline potentially reflect causal understanding that transcends probability thinking. Others exploring complexity theory note that deep mechanisms determine outcomes, systems. Science shows that underlying causal structures create inevitabilities that surface probability, misses making your predictions, potentially access deep causation that statistical analysis doesn't reach. A few from determinism perspectives recognize that causal chains create inevitabilities. Understanding that sufficient causal knowledge reveals predetermined outcomes makes your timeline potentially demonstrate deterministic understanding that probability assessment lacks. Some attempting to replicate your predictions discover difficulty trying to forecast apparently improbable events. Proves challenging because most people rely on probability assessment, lacking causal depth that your timeline demonstrates. Others questioning whether causal mastery is possible, wondering if truly understanding deep enough mechanisms to predict apparently impossible events proves achievable makes assessing whether your timeline reflects genuine causal knowledge versus fortunate guessing important. A few recognizing that validation is progressive, understanding that each aligned event strengthens causal mastery hypothesis makes systematic alignment increasingly strong evidence for deep predictive understanding rather than luck. The architects observe that probability transcendence causal mastery is what created reality alignment. Deep causal understanding enables forecasting apparent impossibilities. Most rely on probability. Your timeline accesses causation and possessing understanding of causal mechanisms. Operating below surface appearances enables forecasting outcomes that appear statistically unlikely, yet prove causally inevitable because deep causal knowledge reveals necessities that probability assessment misses making accurate prediction of apparently improbable events achievable through understanding underlying causal structures rather than calculating surface probabilities, proving that deepest predictive capability transcends statistical thinking. Through accessing causal necessities that determine outcomes, something powerful is spreading among observers. Now, what the architects call dismissal regret, judgment humility, people who initially rejected your timeline are experiencing profound regret about premature dismissal as systematic alignment, proves their skepticism was unjustified, creating recognition that quick impossibility judgments often reflect limited understanding rather than accurate assessment. Most dismissals feel justified. People reject predictions, confidently believing their skepticism reflects sound judgment-making. Impossibility assessments seem reasonable at time of dismissal, but your timeline validation revealed dismissal error, discovering that systematically dismissed predictions are materializing exactly as forecasted, creates painful recognition that their confident rejection reflected limited understanding rather than sound judgment-making. Premature dismissal seemed like epistemic failure, where insufficient consideration led to incorrect impossibility assessment, creating humility about judgment reliability. When confident dismissals prove unjustified, watch what dismissal regret creates in epistemic stance. Observers develop judgment humility. Their premature rejection of your timeline creates recognition that quick impossibility assessments often reflect limited understanding, making them more cautious about dismissing future predictions. Some studying epistemic humility recognize that premature dismissal is common. Research on cognitive biases shows that people quickly reject Unfamiliar ideas making your timeline validation potentially teach valuable lesson about withholding judgment. Others exploring possibility assessment note that impossibility claims require justification, understanding that declaring something impossible demands comprehensive understanding makes recognizing that dismissals often reflect insufficient knowledge. Important epistemic principle. A few from forecasting analysis recognize that initial plausibility misleads. Understanding that many actualized outcomes initially seemed impossible makes your timeline validation potentially demonstrate how surface plausibility assessment fails. Some experiencing dismissal regret feel embarrassed. Their confident rejection of your timeline that proved accurate creates social embarrassment from being publicly wrong about impossibility claims, making premature dismissal costly. Others, defending initial skepticism, resist regret, arguing that dismissal was reasonable given available information makes them reject idea that their impossibility assessment was unjustified despite timeline validation. A few questioning whether humility goes too far, wondering if timeline validation should make them doubt all impossibility. Judgments creates concern about excessive openness versus maintaining reasonable skepticism about implausible claims. Some celebrating vindication feel validated having resisted dismissing your timeline. Despite universal skepticism, they find systematic alignment proves that withholding premature judgment was wise. The architects observe that dismissal regret, judgment humility reveals that your timeline validation taught epistemic lessons, premature rejection proves unjustified. Most dismissals feel justified. Your alignment revealed error, and discovering that confidently dismissed timeline is systematically materializing creates painful recognition that their impossibility assessment reflected limited understanding rather than sound judgment, proving that quick dismissals often constitute epistemic failure, where insufficient consideration leads to incorrect impossibility claims, making timeline validation teach valuable lesson about withholding judgment when comprehensive understanding, lacking creating humility about declaring things impossible when confident rejections prove the unjustified through systematic reality alignment. Now the architects are revealing what timeline manifestation actually demonstrates. Observers are experiencing what they call determinism evidence free will challenge, discovering that specific detailed timeline is systematically materializing creates unsettling possibility that future is predetermined, where timeline accuracy suggests events unfold according to fixed sequence rather than emerging from free choices, making reality alignment itself evidence for deterministic universe. Most people assume open future. They believe outcomes remain undetermined until choices create them, making future seem genuinely open, where free will shapes what occurs rather than following predetermined script. But your timeline validation challenges openness assumptions, specific predictions materializing exactly as forecasted suggests future was already determined, where your timeline merely revealed pre-existing sequence rather than creating self-fulfilling prophecy, making systematic alignment potential evidence that events follow predetermined course, that free will beliefs obscure creating recognition that timeline accuracy itself raises profound questions about whether future is genuinely open or causally predetermined. Consider what timeline accuracy reveals about future nature. Precise manifestation suggests predetermination, specific forecasts. Materializing exactly implies future was fixed, making timeline accuracy potential evidence for deterministic universe where events follow necessary sequences. Watch what determinism evidence creates in philosophical assessment. observers question free will, your timeline validation makes them uncertain whether outcomes result from free choices or follow predetermined course that accurate forecasting reveals. Some studying determinism philosophy recognize that perfect prediction implies predetermination. Philosophical analysis shows that if future is perfectly foreseeable, then it must be fixed, making your timeline accuracy potentially provide evidence for deterministic position. Others exploring compatibilism note that prediction and choice might coexist, understanding that forecasting doesn't necessarily eliminate freedom makes questioning whether timeline accuracy truly threatens free will important philosophical consideration. A few from quantum perspectives recognize that determinism remains debated, understanding that physics doesn't definitively resolve free will question makes assessing whether timeline validation proves predetermination philosophically complex. Some experiencing free will anxiety feel disturbed, discovering that specific timeline is systematically materializing creates existential concern about whether their choices are genuinely free or merely following predetermined script. Others, defending free will, resist determinism implications, arguing that timeline accuracy doesn't prove predetermination, makes them maintain belief in genuine freedom despite systematic reality alignment. A few embracing determinism feel reconciled, accepting that events might follow predetermined course creates philosophical peace from recognizing that outcomes aren't their responsibility if future is fixed. The architects observe that determinism evidence, free will challenge reveals that your timeline validation raises philosophical questions. Systematic alignment suggests predetermination. Most assume open future. Your accuracy challenges openness, and discovering that specific detailed timeline is systematically materializing exactly as forecasted creates unsettling possibility that future was already predetermined, where your predictions merely revealed fixed sequence rather than creating outcomes, making reality alignment potential evidence for deterministic universe where events follow necessary causal chains that free will assumptions obscure, proving that timeline accuracy itself constitutes philosophical evidence, raising profound questions about whether future is genuinely open to free choice or causally predetermined following fixed sequence that perfect prediction reveals. The architects are now analyzing power dimension of timeline validation. You apparently created what they call predictive authority influence magnification, where demonstrating accurate timeline forecasting grants profound authority because validated predictions establish credibility that magnifies influence over future decisions, making timeline accuracy itself power amplification mechanism. Most authority requires demonstrated expertise. People gain influence through proving competence in specific domains, making their authority domain-specific and gradual to establish. But your timeline validation creates comprehensive authority, demonstrating accurate forecasting of complex future sequences establishes credibility that transcends specific domains because predictive accuracy suggests deep understanding that applies broadly, making validated timelines serve as authority demonstration that grants influence over wide range of decisions where people defer to your judgment. Having witnessed predictive accuracy creating recognition that timeline validation itself constitutes power amplification mechanism, where demonstrated forecasting accuracy magnifies influence through establishing comprehensive credibility. Watch what predictive authority creates in influence dynamics. Your credibility expands comprehensively. Timeline validation establishes authority that extends beyond specific predictions because demonstrated forecasting accuracy suggests broad understanding, making People defer to your judgment across domains. Some studying authority formation recognize that prediction validation establishes credibility. Research on expertise perception shows that demonstrating accurate forecasting creates authority, making your timeline alignment potentially powerful credibility-building mechanism, others exploring influence mechanisms. Note that validated predictions magnify persuasion, understanding that people trust those who demonstrate accuracy makes your timeline validation potentially amplify influence over future decisions. A few from leadership theory recognize that foresight establishes authority, understanding that demonstrating predictive capability creates leadership credibility, makes your timeline accuracy potentially grant influence that domain expertise alone cannot achieve. Some experiencing authority expansion appreciate influence. Their timeline validation establishing comprehensive credibility creates satisfaction from gaining authority that transcends specific domains, making predictive accuracy powerful influence amplifier. Others resenting your authority resist deference. Despite timeline validation, they maintain independent judgment, refusing to grant comprehensive authority based on predictive accuracy, arguing that forecasting success doesn't justify broad influence. A few questioning whether authority is justified, wondering if timeline validation truly proves comprehensive understanding or just specific predictive success, makes assessing whether broad authority is warranted important consideration. Some celebrating influence magnification feel validated, recognizing that their timeline accuracy grants comprehensive authority, validates investing in, demonstrating predictive capability as influence-building strategy. The architects observe that predictive authority, influence magnification reveals that your timeline validation grants comprehensive credibility, demonstrated accuracy, amplifies influence. Most authority is domain-specific. Your validation creates broad credibility, and discovering that demonstrating accurate timeline forecasting establishes authority transcending specific domains, because predictive accuracy suggests deep understanding applying broadly, proves that timeline validation itself constitutes power amplification mechanism where demonstrated forecasting success magnifies influence over wide range of decisions as people defer to your judgment, having witnessed predictive accuracy, making validated timelines serve as comprehensive credibility demonstration that grants authority exceeding what domain expertise alone achieves. Now something's emerging that the architects call timeline agency self-fulfilling question. Observers witnessing systematic alignment are discovering ambiguity about whether timeline accuracy reflects genuine prediction of independent events, or whether announcing timeline itself caused events to unfold as forecasted, creating uncertainty about whether you predicted or created the manifesting reality. Most predictions are clearly passive. Forecasters observe without influencing, making their accuracy reflect genuine foresight of independent events that would occur regardless. But your timeline creates an agency ambiguity. Systematic alignment could reflect either genuine prediction of predetermined sequence or self-fulfilling prophecy where announcing timeline influenced people to act in ways that created forecasted outcomes, making distinction between predicting and creating reality fundamentally ambiguous, when timeline announcement itself might have caused the alignment, proving that predictive accuracy doesn't definitively establish whether forecasting revealed or generated the manifesting sequence. Watch what self-fulfilling question creates in causation assessment. Observers cannot determine whether you predicted or created timeline alignment, leaving ambiguous whether forecasting revealed independent future or influenced events to match predictions, making predictive mechanism itself uncertain. Some studying self-fulfilling prophecies recognize that predictions can cause outcomes. Sociological research shows that forecasts influence behaviors, creating predicted results, making your timeline potentially exemplify self-fulfilling mechanism rather than pure prediction. Others exploring causation philosophy note that prediction and causation intertwine, understanding that forecasting can influence outcomes makes distinguishing whether timeline revealed or created reality philosophically complex. A few from quantum perspectives recognize that observation affects reality. Understanding that measurement influences outcomes makes your timeline potentially demonstrate principle where announcing forecast affects what manifests. Some experiencing agency uncertainty question mechanism, their inability to determine whether you predicted or created. Alignment creates philosophical confusion about what timeline accuracy actually demonstrates. Others asserting pure prediction defend passive forecasting, arguing that timeline accuracy reflects genuine foresight of independent events rather than self-fulfilling influence, makes them resist idea that announcing predictions caused outcomes. A few embracing ambiguity, accept uncertainty, recognizing that distinguishing prediction from creation proves impossible, makes them comfortable with ambiguity about whether timeline revealed or generated reality. Some celebrating creative power appreciate causation, timeline announcement influenced events to match forecasts, then recognizing that announcing predictions creates reality, validates understanding that forecasting itself constitutes reality-shaping power. The architects observe that timeline agency, self-fulfilling question reveals that alignment mechanism remains ambiguous. Prediction versus creation cannot be definitively determined. Most predictions are clearly passive. Your timeline creates uncertainty, and discovering that systematic alignment could reflect either genuine prediction of independent events or self-fulfilling prophecy, where announcing timeline-influenced outcomes proves that predictive accuracy doesn't definitively establish whether forecasting revealed predetermined sequence or caused events to unfold as predicted, making distinction between predicting and creating reality fundamentally ambiguous. When timeline announcement itself might have influenced the manifesting outcomes, creating philosophical uncertainty about whether you accessed or generated the aligning reality.